My name's Kirsten Henderson. I work for executive search and recruitment company called Joe Fish Executive Search, and I'm a consultant with them. I run the search practice here in New Zealand. So we mainly work in higher education and government, doing search and selection in those areas. I started from university. I joined a graduate recruitment program at South African breweries in human resources function. And so I covered the whole area, the general area of human resources, and I loved that. Then when I had my son, I then joined Ernst & Young and was an HR manager with them. And then I had my son and didn't end up working for 8 years and moved from Zimbabwe to New Zealand. When I tried to come back to work, it was quite hard actually to find work, especially human resources work. You need to be on site, so to say, so it wasn't very easy to have a part-time role. Decided I'd try the recruitment area, and I ended up joining Joe Fisher and starting off kind of in a more junior position, doing the background work on people and some of the research and preparation of reports, and then I've ended up doing this role now. I suppose certainly here in New Zealand, it's a small country, so for a lot of the very senior executive roles, the field is known already who would apply in New Zealand. It's a small country. We need new skills, different resources, different people coming in, different ideas, different ways of doing things. It's always an international search. We're trying to bring new people in. They don't have the skills on the ground. That's why also I suppose we're a specialist in our field. And so we have a huge network and hopefully can tap people that wouldn't normally be looking for work. I suppose that's the other thing about search is we're looking at people we'll be contacting people who aren't actually looking most of the time for jobs. And so you'll be phoning, getting in touch with them, asking if they'd be interested to discuss a role and trying to point out why it would be useful for them or interesting or good for their career to take that. So you're tapping into a source which a company just doing an advertising campaign wouldn't normally get in touch with those people. The benefit of what we do is we have a huge variety of clients across Australia and New Zealand, and so we've always got there's a huge pool of candidates to pull from, which maybe an in-house search function doesn't always have that. I think I love meeting the people. That to me is the best part. And even though these days it's nearly always digitally, it's very rarely do I get to meet real candidates face to face. I still really enjoy that, and I love getting to know my clients as well, and feeling you're making a real contribution to their business, because we do a lot of quite senior level work, and I enjoy that. And then I get a bit of a personal kick out of predicting who's going to be the successful candidate right from the beginning. Sometimes in dealing with people don't always come to recruitment, enter a recruitment process with the idea that they're going to get another job at the end. You often come across people who are doing it because maybe they want to leverage their own position in their organisation. They just thought it might be interesting, so they might put their toe in the water. Those kind of people are quite, and if you can't kind of see through that at the beginning, and some people are fairly good at hiding that's quite disappointing, because you put a lot of work and effort and time into that, and then they will suddenly decide they're withdrawing at a critical moment. So that's a big challenge. Mm. Sometimes we get given very specific, quite niche types of roles. It's quite tough finding those kind of people. You really have to look hard and search in different kind of places to find those people. So that's a challenge when a client is expecting you to produce some rabbits out of the hat and you're struggling to find the candidates. I think a third one must be it's very deadline based. So you're always under the gun. You always have to deliver. And if you have a number of assignments going, and one day you can have 2, and the next day suddenly you get more work and your workload's doubled all of a sudden, but you still have to deliver to those deadlines. I know when I first arrived here and the first job I took, it really struck me how collegial and everyone was a colleague here. There was definitely not the boss-subordinate type of relationship, which was definitely, the way it was in South Africa and Zimbabwe. You were definitely a manager, or you weren't a manager. And I suppose the other thing that I really noticed about New Zealand, and I suppose it's compared to Africa, is what I'm saying, is there are lots of options for females and women to be able to work around your family. And I don't know why in Africa you didn't get the feeling that companies were as set up for that. There just wasn't that choice, in as much choice in Africa. Things weren't as easily set up for flexible working or for both parents to be working. It wasn't discussed like it is here at all. I think you've got to enjoy people, be able to, have a good read on people. And sometimes that's being a little bit cynical about them too, not always thinking all the best about everybody. I think you've got to be quite realistic about that. It's quite a roller coaster kind of environment, not only on the deadlines, but I think you put so much work into either sometimes winning perhaps some work, in terms of bidding for work with a client, or, put a lot of work into a candidate. And if it doesn't all, if it falls through for some reason, it's quite you have to be quite resilient about that and be able to take it. You can't take it too personally. A candidate said to me the other day, she said why she loves recruitment is she loves it because there's a beginning and there's an end, and you can see your progress. And I thought that's actually quite good, because if you're talking about general HR, quite often there isn't. It's quite an ongoing thing, and you can't see tangible progress. You're kind of really delivering something real to people. There's a lot of administration that goes on in the background. So although you're dealing with people and, you'll have to present your candidates to your client and so forth, that's the kind of high profile part of it. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of reports and attention to detail and emails that to get it right, especially in search, because you're dealing with senior people, the level we are people's careers. That's something you need to be good at as well and like doing. You've got to be able to pay attention to detail. It's not just about making the great placement. To get there, there's a lot of detail that goes on. And in recruitment, what's interesting is you get people different about jobs and what kind of jobs people have and who fits what job. That's the kind of matching thing is really the stimulating part about recruitment and selection, matching not only the person to the job, but to the environment that is on the other side. And it works very well, and I enjoy the work. It is linked to HR work. I enjoy the people. And it works for my family. Yeah. Mm-hmm.